again with Trauma Behind the Badge. It is a pleasure to be with the guys again tonight. Just doing things, man. Chris, I got to see you and Chris. I see both of you guys tomorrow. I just realized that
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
I see both of you guys
Yeah.
tomorrow, man. So good seeing you guys. Really quick, Rich and Doug. Hopefully they'll be on here in a minute. They said they would be on, but who knows what's going on with those two guys and all the connects they got around the country. So we'll hope that they can get on. But hey, guys, like we always do, man. Oh my God, Shakira. Uh, what Chris Shakira Scallon? What you been doing, man? What's been going on?
Yeah. Nothing. Well, we just all been pretty much hanging here not too long ago. Kind of all over the place. What we do? We did ICP. We're hanging out
Yes.
there. Wound up doing the Rio Grande stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just kind of all over the place. But we got let's see what we got coming up. Yeah, me, Raul, and the Tiger King are going to be in Virginia,
Hmm.
doing a conference over there over Chesterfield County,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
really good. So they did a really good job promoting it. And then next week I'll be down in Largo doing some group crisis intervention stuff down there training.
So really quick, and I don't know if Liz knows this, but well, she knows we were in Boston at IACP. It was Scallon, Doug, Richie, and myself. It's a police conference, so Tiger King didn't want to, come to that one. So, and he was doing his own stuff. I'm only playing Tiger King, but it's a big police conference, International Chiefs of Police Conference. Uh, we had a great time. What happens in Boston stays in Boston, so we don't talk about it too much. But I did we did a promo video after the conference, and if you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. But
Oh yes.
everybody keeps asking me
Mhm.
about this. Everybody that's watched it said that as soon as they finish watching it, they want to go get some nuts because there may have been some
Mhm.
subliminal messages going
They
on
don't
in
know what's
there.
going on. They
They're
don't.
not really sure what happened, but they want to, and
Very.
somebody said like they thought maybe they saw a squirrel throughout the video. I don't know what they're talking about.
I don't know what they're talking
Don't know what
about.
they're talking about.
That's awesome.
But
Mhm.
if there have you seen it, Liz?
Yeah.
By any chance, have you seen the promo video of after the IACP? Did you see that? You've got to check it out. I will send it
No,
to you.
I have
I'm behind
not.
I'll send it to
it.
you. You're probably going to be hungry. You're going to want to eat some salted nuts. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you right now.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes. I don't know
but
why. Same
people
here.
have been asking me like, why do they have the urge to eat salted nuts? And I don't have the answer. Chris, did
Just
you know
don't know.
anything about that? Don't know. Okay. We're gonna leave it at that. We're gonna leave it at that. Just say if you haven't seen
I'm an
the
unsalted guy, so I wouldn't.
yeah, if you haven't seen the Trauma Behind the Badge,
Oh, I do.
IACP Boston.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I forgot. I completely forgot. We were all together in
Yeah.
Yeah.
California.
Oh, that's
You know
right.
why? Because it was a 4-second long trip. We landed,
That's right.
did our thing, and then jumped.
That's right. We were
Apparently, they flew all the Colombians to. Yeah.
we went and did a visit. We went and did a visit. That was last week, right? Was that last week? That was that last week, guys. We were in
Yeah.
California last week. We went out to California and visited First
We got
Responder
home
Wellness Tuesday. So we went and visited First Responder Wellness.
Yeah.
Great visit. Got to see what they do. And just eye opener about what they got going on up there, and great conversation. So kudos to them for what they do. But yeah, all the guys were able to get together and kind of do that, and it's always a different kind of shit show when we're physically together in one place. Things happen. So again, what happens in California stays in
Raul has
California.
got a.
What's that?
What Raul, with the exception of Raul, was our infield videographer. So I know you're going to be putting some stuff together, then we'll be putting it out.
Yeah. I finally got all. Yeah, I finally got all the footage downloaded. It's taking a minute. We took a lot of footage out there, so now I'm got to kind of splice it up, edit it. It's gonna take a second. Tiger King he's got rules. You can only film it from the right side, so I got to make sure to edit those things. To make sure that the right side, right, Tiger King, that's the good
And
side.
remember, when people watch it, right? I would say, remember when people watch it. Remember, the camera adds 35 pounds.
Exactly. Exactly.
Used to be 10. Inflation,
Right.
Now it's 35.
New camera.
Exactly. So, Chris, what's been going on, Tiger King? What's been going on with you, man?
Nothing much. Hanging with y'all, and then working here with Danny in the wellness division here in Oklahoma, and then see y'all tomorrow, leaving late. If my flight's delayed and late, I'll just wait for you and Uber with you if I'm late, which is probably a pretty good chance. And then I'm done until like January. I think I go to like Murphy, Texas, or somewhere in January. So I'm done until January unless something unexpected pops up. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
So
we got a lot. Everybody's got a lot of stuff going on. I know in January got one thing up in New York that it's and we also have Survive First has their 5K, 10K, 5K.
It's a 5K.
In January.
5K.
I know we'll put some stuff out about that.
Yeah, the 5Ks. I think that first Saturday in January. So look forward to seeing being at that and doing that for Survive First. So and we'll put some information about.
Hey, is Raul fuzzy to everybody, or is he just fuzzy to me?
No, he's fuzzy.
So remember, it'll come in a little fuzzy, but
I don't mean literally. I mean.
It'll come in fuzzy, but it's recording. When I upload it, it'll come in all right, man. It'll be fine. I think I'm lagging a little bit, so if there's a little bit of a lag in when you're hearing me and when you're hearing yourself, don't worry about it. I'll fix it during the edit.
Yeah, you are lagging.
Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna have a great
stop at the worst time.
I know. God. It's exactly, I tell you what. So anyway, we have a great guest on the night. She's been part of the shit show for a while. She's just the first time having her on, but she's been with us and we've been rolling with her for a couple years now. And she just kind of, it's one of those we talk about, when when real recognizes real. And from the first time we met her, I think in Chicago, I think it was in Chicago when we first met Liz. Does that sound right? During some Quell stuff, I believe.
Oh, you're cutting out.
Oh, am I cutting out? Shit. Are you serious?
So
go ahead, Chris. Take over. Take over.
I'll tell you where I wound up coming across. We were doing something for Quell, and I think we were going to. Was it Boca or Lynn University?
Yes, Boca, going to Lynn University.
On the way down, they're like, one of the guys is like, "Hey, listen, we're bringing in Liz, and you're gonna love her. She's like you, but better looking." And I said, first of all, no, that's impossible. There's nobody better looking, with maybe the exception of Tiger King. But you guys are gonna get along. So the reason my Shakira name for this show. Because we were talking about it earlier that I had Ghost Hunter for our last show with the Beyond the Badge Paranormal. We're both Liz and I are both Colombian. So,
nice.
And in my phone I have actually Shakira, a picture of Shakira when she calls, and anytime she has her stuff up there. But we're cut from the same cloth. And when we first met up over at Lynn University. I think they sat us next to each other, which I think is
first
racist.
mistake.
But it was awesome. Liz is super smart, as funny as she is smart, great personality, but above everything else, really gives a shit about her cops and her first responders and her veterans and stuff like that. So, and obviously being from where you're at and where you work, you guys are hit like in 7 different ways for whether it be suicide, line of duty deaths, injuries, all that stuff. just your agency is one of the larger agencies in the country, so it kind of gets a lot of heat. But it's probably one of the most violent areas or violent departments that faces the most violence per capita kind of thing. So then once we finished up there, or we moved on, we wound up doing something over at CPD, and I think that's when you guys linked up over there. I think I went over there with, who did I go there? Was that me and you, Chris? Did they put us
I don't
there?
know. Are you? Yeah, me and you went, didn't we?
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
know we were staggered. It was because it was Raul.
Yeah,
You
Raul
guys.
and Doug went. Me and you went.
Yeah.
It's just me.
But again, just kind of seeing what it looked like over in Chicago, which I won't ever talk bad about an agency to a certain degree, but I will say that Chicago is so overwhelmed with training, and I've seen it before when agencies have to have training, whether it be under a mandate or that every training it just gets thrown, and there's only so much people can take where you're like, oh, I got to sit through another bullshit class. There's just so much happening. I think that it becomes overwhelming to a certain degree. But yeah, so I got to see it firsthand. Not to mention that I was also stationed up in Chicago, so that's like my home away from home. Kind of loved it up there. Cold as shit, but still awesome. But anyway, so like, and then from that point on, I think Liz and I have been kind of bumping each other on different conferences and when we're doing stuff with Quell and when we're doing some other stuff. And it's just been phenomenal. And I can't believe it's taken this long to get you on. But she does something that I think is so, I think, needed. We're always focused on helping people when they're struggling. And we at Trauma Behind the Badge do that. Chris will get a phone call, Raul or Doug, I'll get a phone call. And then we're kind of being kind of reactive. Whereas Liz comes in, some at times reactive, but you take another look at it, and your specialty is psychological autopsies. In other words, kind of breaking down, not for the purposes of just to do it, but also to get an understanding of how we can change the momentum of, instead of waiting for people to get hurt, let's figure out how do we prevent people from getting hurt. So may catch it on the back end and dealing with some pretty horrible stuff, but and kind of analyzing it and breaking those things down, we can kind of figure that out and kind of help the agencies and help, and in turn help the first responders as well. So
yeah, cool. I think Raul will drop for a minute, so we'll pitch it to the star. We'll pitch it to the star of this show. So just let us know who Liz is, how many years, and before we start, real quick. And I know I speak for all of us. I know it's been a week already, and I know you're retired, but they're still your brothers and sisters. Our condolences for the officer that, line of duty a week ago, I think, maybe, or just a little over a week ago.
Well, you've had line of duty and a couple suicides.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and
the sad, but probably, the line of duty is what makes the headlines.
Yeah.
Not the other one. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that on. So
thank you.
Take it away. Tell us who Liz is.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for having me on. I'm so excited because you guys are like, this is my comfort zone right here. These are my fellas. So yeah, it's been nothing but amazing meeting all of you. I'm so grateful and I'm so lucky to have met such a wonderful group of guys who are so intelligent and have so much wisdom and experience. So I feel like, I'm the luckiest gal. So yes, I have been a Chicago police officer for 20 years now. I am still active, and I have a master's in forensic psychology where I did all clinical work through my studies. And then I became involved in going to get certified to be a certified investigator for suicide psychological autopsies. And so there's kind of a little story as to how I even ended in that direction. Early on in my career, I learned, and I was just a 23-year-old kid, really. I noticed that, these suicides, they were happening in such large numbers. And it was kind of like really just appalling because, there was just so many questions that people were left with. And so people would always have a lot of conversations at roll calls on the street, in the station regarding the suicides, just trying to get down to the bottom of why and how this could happen. So I learned early on that there was a lot of there was a bit of a gap of knowledge on it, right? Including myself, where it was kind of like we don't really have answers and we're seeking those answers. So fast forward later, I got involved in suicide psychological autopsies, and it's really just going back into the deceased member's case. And from the day of suicide, we work our way back forensically from a psychological standpoint. We're trying to answer three questions: why suicide, why those means, and why that day. And so as I started to um, do the work and go into these cases, I started to understand so much more that was present in the individual's life that we really had never looked at, or no one really understood, or really came up. So the way that they're handled is I reach out to, there's one point of contact I start with of the individuals, like family, friends, or coworkers, whoever that point of contact is. I start to interview that individual, and then I go on into interviewing other individuals, each separately. And there's a scale I follow, and I just really ask a lot of questions where we're looking at anything from like their background, mental health, physical health history. We're looking at all different kinds of angles, different behaviors, personality traits, all kinds of things that may or may have not been present. I mean, we're looking at all areas, and there's so much information that's present. And when I look at these and I'm hearing a lot of people give me information, I've realized, wow, there's so much that's happening before people's actual eyes, but because they're not trained and they don't know how to really identify that they are indicators of suicide, they're missing them.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, wow, we can be so we can prevent some of this from happening, from getting to the point where people are in such severe crisis that it continues to spiral, and now it goes into the direction of suicidal ideation. And so I felt that there was a need to take a lot of the information that I have gathered and learned from different cases and start talking about it amongst the first responder population. I felt that it was important to start kind of having that conversation of suicide in general, because we don't like to talk about it. It's very taboo. And I understand it's not easy, it's very hard. And all of us have been somehow, one way or another, touched by a suicide, of a coworker, whether we really knew them or not, but we know of cases that have occurred. And so sitting here and doing what we've been doing about these suicides, which is really just, you have a suicide, it happens 5 to 7 days after it has occurred, we're kind of back to business as usual until the next one comes about. And we do the same exact thing where it's just like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. We have an emotional, reaction to it, or, we have questions or comments we make. And then it's kind of like, all right, it's past, 5, 7 days. We're just kind of like, all right, it's over, move on. And then we do it again. So it's kind of like, I feel that we needed to start having more of a conversation to really start understanding and being more proactive in our approach, to really just start having friends, family, coworkers, everyone around start paying attention to certain behaviors and certain things that people are presenting, and understand that they may be indicative of suicide behavior. And so maybe just kind of pay, at the very least, more attention to it, speak to the individual, and so on. And so from that point forward, that's what got me involved in really just starting the work that I'm doing and create curriculum that has been approved, and start this not-for-profit.
So couple things, and all of us kind of see this in the same kind of light. I think is what you're doing and how you're looking at things is important, 100%. But the reality of the obstacles that we face when we're doing it are agencies, like you said, don't want to talk about it. They want to sweep it under the rug. There's complications in the specificity of suicide. And I say this kind of because we've seen this a lot. It's either like a black or white. Like if I ask a question, well, does the agency, should they provide, like honors for an officer who dies by suicide? And then you'll have people of course not, it's not line of duty. And to them, I would say, well, how do we know it's not line of duty? And then on the other side, they're like, I don't care, any officer that dies by suicide, we should have honors. And I'm like, well, what if the circumstances of it aren't so much related to work as it is maybe something significant that might be illegal or something having to deal outside of the job. Not that it doesn't touch it for a certain part. So it's so complicated, and gender, race, ethnicity, culture, they all play a role. And so kind of like navigating through that, it's hard to come with and this is where I think where your nonprofit really would help out is it's hard to say, hey, this is what we do for this and this and this, because sometimes that changes. You may not approach the same. And I'll tell you, with line of duty deaths, and again, following a line of duty death or a suicide, they're so emotionally charged. Sometimes family members or close friends and relatives and stuff aren't in the best place to kind of see everything. And then they're doing a lot of retrospective kind of look like, hey, what, did I see this, or could I have done something, or this or that? And so they're kind of wrapped up in that. So I think your approach, and again, coming to it even at a later point to kind of get, once the dust has settled, so to speak, and kind of get a clear understanding. So it's super emotionally charged. It's super taboo. There's so many different like spectrums of all those things, like die by suicide, work related, maybe 60% work related, or maybe 30% work related, or what is your agency seeing? Then what happens when you get like multiple? And I know, and what did you guys have in this last couple weeks? 2?
So we had one active in the last week and a half, and then we had a retiree 2 nights ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's so then you look at it from different, like the different stations in life. Are you active? Are you in the beginning part of your career? Are you in the middle of your career? Are you in the twilight of your career? Are you newly retired? I mean, there's so many things that kind of play a role. So I'm curious because I Sean behind the badge super wants to support your nonprofit because I think it's awesome. Can you tell us about how you started your nonprofit, what it is, and what you're doing?
So when I started doing the autopsies and I got all this information, I decided, aside from just a regular conversation, I felt that this would be something that would be beneficial to have, as it's psychoeducation essentially. And so it's like I guess you could use it as a form of training, right? But for me, it was important I want to deliver this message. We want to fill this knowledge gap, right? But at the same time, we don't want it to be just nonsense where people just show up. And once again, I'm still in that trainee seat, right? And so it's kind of like, oh my God, this is like death by PowerPoint. And I just, what time is lunch and what time are we going to be cut today? Like I showed up, I signed my name, I'm done. No, I felt that with this topic, the design needs to be very important, right? And so for me, it was very much so putting together a curriculum where we're going to be giving that educational component. But for the most part, it's really something that speaks our language, right, to each other. So it's a very it's a very interactive conversational piece, right? We do a little bit of like a scenario based training, right? Where we like kind of like real life experiences that we can all relate to. So there's a lot of that goes on, and we really have a very interactive experience where people are giving conversation. It becomes a room full of first responders that are kind of like bouncing ideas and info off of each other and what they've experienced, what that individual's experienced, and we relate all of that. So we're touching on the mental health, we're touching on stress, we're touching on the actual suicide psychological autopsies. There are some cases that I present that are redacted with the information of the individual case. And so it really is just a way for people to start to really have it all come together, right? It really starts to show how all these different risk factors are present, right? And they push the individual in that direction. How the protective factors that we need that keep us holding on and keep us going start to diminish, and they start to, in a lot of cases, they're just completely absent. And so you kind of start to see how this the story unfolds and how people start going in a direction where they're spiraling so far down this hole that it becomes so difficult to go on, and their thinking is clouded, and they have impaired judgment, and they start to lose hope. And so it's important to really start having people not only understand what's happened to cases, but how to start being aware for themselves or for others around them, to understand that what you're seeing, what's being displayed in front of you might be something you need to pay at the very least a little more attention to, right? And we talk about, okay, so what do you do, right? When you find yourself or others in these situations, when they're displaying these behaviors or these traits, like, what can we possibly do? How do we intervene? Where do we turn? What are our options? Right? Psychotherapy is an option for people. It doesn't work for all. But aside from that, what other options, what other therapeutic modalities are there out there, which we don't talk about? And so I feel like it's not one size fits all. That's another piece that I like to really get into, is like that we go really deep into the world of psychology and really understanding like what's out there, what's available, what may work for you or not. Some people haven't even heard of any other options regarding trauma, like EMDR, right? Everyone's kind of like, I've never heard of that, not sure. So I think it's important when we are, as first responders, when we're trained to do our duties, think about this. When we're trained how to use that firearm, if you're the police, if you are trained as a fireman, how to, run that engine and all of that, we do better at our job, as opposed to like, just you're thrown out there and it's like, yeah, well, nobody trained me. No, you're better when you're trained and you're given the tools, right? I feel that the same way goes for self-care, right? And trying to be more proactive so that we can avoid crisis, especially when it comes to this profession that we are all in. We're able to handle things better. We won't be so reluctant and afraid to like deal with stuff that we should be dealing with, because it's not just going away, right? The traumas we endure, the difficult things that we experience, those intrusive thoughts that keep haunting us, and the way that we decide to cope as best as we know how, and sometimes it's not a healthy approach, causes more problems and more damage than anything else. So it's kind of like, why don't we turn that around a little bit and see if we can do better? So I started the not-for-profit Resilient Heroes, especially for the fact that I know that there are agencies out there where their cities, their townships or villages, whoever is running the police department, they really focus a lot of their budget and financials into mandated training that's necessary and by law has to be fulfilled annually. And then it's kind of like, after that, it's kind of like, well, we don't necessarily have any more means to really give any more training or anything that's really beneficial to the officers or the firemen or the EMS or the dispatchers for their well-being. So I felt, well, if that's the issue, okay, let's start a not-for-profit. And so if finances or budget are an issue, my not-for-profit can step in and offer the self-care and offer the ability to get these first responders what they need, and military, what they need, and then budget and finances aren't an issue. So if you really are for the well-being of these individuals, then there shouldn't be an issue at this point. So you're bringing in this psychoeducation and we're starting to become more proactive.
And it's not, and you, like you said earlier, it's not discipline specific. So like you for the firehouse or for the,
right.
And here's the other thing that, I think it's important, because I'm always thinking, how do you change the whole organization? But sometimes you got to start at the small levels. And I'll throw it over to Chris, because I know there's politics within the departments. I know certain precincts in certain areas are deemed, the busy precincts. So, and some are like, oh, this is a more urban or suburban precincts or this or that, right? In the firehouses, and I know in the ones that I've worked and been around there, whether it's truck or engine, or there's a combination of both truck, engine, and an ambulance or medic, kind of all filtered in. Where you are in your department, certain houses are known for certain things. And so, like, Chris, like in looking at in Oklahoma, was that the same kind of culture you saw there? There were certain houses that you'd probably get more of a purchase in bringing this stuff up, and then maybe they plant the seed in that house and then kind of spring it out from there. Or
yeah, it's like you said, it's all you've got the houses that run, in Oklahoma City's, 620 square miles, so it's like 37 fire stations broke up into 6 districts. Some are outlying, what we call retirement homes, and some are so out there it's probably a lot of guys I think that's where some guys like transition from being at, one of the busiest houses in the country or in the city or the state or whatever you want to phrase it. And then they say, man, I got it. Their way of coping with it is they just they want to go to another station and slow down.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing, they just take it to that other station with them. And now they feel like these guys or girls wouldn't have a clue what they're talking about because they've been out here at this grass station for 15 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it's that same, but it's like you said, you got to start in small deal. Like when I came back from my treatment, I started conversation. I told them where I had been, what I'd been through, and all this, and it helped spark conversations, later after some maybe traumatic calls or stuff like that. So, but it's the same. It's
I always struggle with, and you, Liz or Chris, definitely chime in. When do we bring this up? I think we should bring it up in training before you even get onto the job, fully sworn.
Absolutely.
I think it should
100%.
also be in service. Here's where, and I think it should be like in the military, we have it when like a transition assistance program or TAPS, where as you're leaving the military, they help you kind of figure out what your life looks like afterwards. But the one thing that I saw was missing was, in order to get promoted, very rarely did they have anything on. You had to study on what kind of resources are out there and stuff like that. So I'm always curious if that probably would be beneficial to have those types of trainings or information kind of groupthink kind of things that make it mandatory for supervisors to, if you're going to want to get promoted, you have to study that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of the times, and here's what I have found through like promotional training, right? So you have these first responders that get promoted, right? And they go into their training for whatever, sergeant school, whatever level, right?
Mhm.
And they're really just focused on, policy and like what your duties are going to be day to day to really just kind of, do the paperwork, right? Because you're checking reports, you're making sure things are all checked when you're handling, arrests or what it may be, right? And a lot of the individuals are just really not, it's beyond their scope, right? Like a lot of people don't do well kind of like sitting there talking to their, employees and just kind of like, hey, how you feeling? Like having those kinds of conversations, like it's not easy. So I think it doesn't come naturally, I guess, for everyone. So a lot of times there are people that notice things, but they just don't even know what to do. So I think it is important in promotional training that because of the fact that you're constantly around these individuals, you get to learn their personalities, you see what their typical behaviors are like. If anything is off, you're probably going to be the first individuals to really notice something. Now, whether you say or do anything about it is a different story, but sometimes people just don't know how to approach that or what to do, right? And so I think giving a little bit of, examples or, ideas on how to better deal with your individual people that you supervise is necessary. And then as far as recruit training, from the very early academy stages, I think it's important. This was unheard of back in the day. I mean, I'm going into my 21st year and no one ever told me like, hey, guess what? Like, first of all, in the academy, they kind of keep it, it's very black and white, and I get it because, these are like the learning stepping stones, right? But when you get out into the real world on the streets, this is the gray area. No one talks about the gray area in the academy. You're just thrown in the lion's den and it's like, figure it out, kid. And no one prepared me for half of the stuff that I experienced, that happened to me, that I saw. The traumas are just over the top. I mean, I came home with brain matter all over my legs one day, and I had no idea after midnights from 7 bodies I had that were killed. I had no idea what it was. And then when I realized what it was, I had no idea how to process that. Now I'm shaking because my adrenaline has come down. Like, this is a young 25-year-old kid, no debrief. So it is important that we, like the world evolves, we kind of have to evolve, because like I've told people, I know, and I have a little bit of like that old school mentality sometimes, because I came on this job at a different time. where it was kind of like suck it up, buttercup, toughen up, kid, or shut up and wait to be spoken to. But the thing about the way that the job was handled 50 years ago or so, things weren't so gruesome maybe and so in your face like they are now. It's not happening at the speed maybe that we're seeing. We didn't have those mass school shootings. You know what I mean? There's so many things that we're seeing now that maybe didn't happen back then. And that's because the world evolves, right? Like we've gotten a little more violent. It's more in your face. We didn't have social media and all the stuff we're seeing. So as the world evolves, I think we need to evolve. So maybe we didn't do it before, but I think it's necessary we start doing it now. So let these recruits know, like, hey, there may be times you're going to see and go over some of those gruesome, horrible traumas that you might experience, and let them know, like, hey, doesn't mean here's some of the reactions. As a human being, you're going to have these reactions, and we're having very normal reactions to abnormal situations, because half of the stuff we deal with, it's not normal day-to-day stuff that the general population sees in a week, in a day, or even in their lifetime.
Well, you were talking about starting them in the rookie schools, and a few quick stories real quick. And I don't know if they still do it. One guy says he thinks they do it, but like the highway patrol here in Oklahoma, like their first day, they show them like an hour and a half of nothing but gruesome car wrecks and stuff. Go ahead and expose them to what they're going to see. And Oklahoma City Fire now in their rookie school, I think they have 1 or 2 days. I would like to be more, but hey, where they dedicate it to mental health, have people come in and talk. They have a financial planner come in and talk.
Wow.
And you talk about the trauma, but and it is trauma, but the simple things, and I always tell it when I tell my story. My first day on the job, I went to, back then rookie school was only like 8 weeks, and of course, when you're hired, you see the commercials, the lights, the sirens, the pats on the back for the firefighters. And so you're training, and even just like CPR, you're doing it on a dummy for 8 weeks, CPR Annie or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And you're doing it, and every time you always bring Annie back.
Yeah.
Every time. Mm-hmm. And they always tell you, now when you're doing this in real, you're going to have to push down and you'll hear some research. Well, that's all good. But I remember my first call, got the station. I hadn't been there 10 minutes. We make a full arrest. We got this. We're going to go in there. And I'm 21 years old. I'd worked like in the oil field and at a feed store. I wasn't come from any first responder stuff. And 2 pushes in, I'm cracking sternum and cracking ribs on a 70-year-old or 80-year-old victim. And I'm going, and they're going, I think I even stopped. My officer's like, keep it going. I'm like, man, now it's going, now it sounds like crunch glass I'm pushing on. Man, that I'm telling you, I went back to the station, and the whole way I was going, and of course we didn't revive them. And I'm thinking, what in the world have I stepped into here?
Yeah.
Because I went through rookie school thinking this is the greatest job. We save people. We do all this stuff. And back then, like you say, I was hired in 1985, so that's a long time ago. Those feelings, and I'm sure my officers had those feelings when they were new, before that, but back then it wasn't something. I just thought, okay, I don't think I should be upset about this, because that's just like something you see every day in the fire service. It's not the blood and the guts and the, unless they lose all their bodily function stuff. But I mean, it's not, it was just as simple as pushing down and hearing those ribs and that sternum crack and thinking, oh my gosh, I was not prepared for that, because CPR Annie doesn't crack.
No, for me, it's because I always think there's a couple things. I think, because I remember being in the academy, and at a certain point in the academy, you're like, you're going to graduate, you're going to go on to do what you're going to do. And you kind of like I'll speak for me. You kind of turn it off a little bit, like whatever, like I stopped shining my shoes, like when I hit that thing, and I knew the grade I needed on
once you passed all the tests you need.
I'm like, shit, like whatever, I got this. It's all in the thing. So I don't do you do it towards the end of the academy? And I was thinking, well, do you do it at the beginning? Well, no, everybody's wide eyed in the middle. So kind of trying to find that right thing. And then also in training, or while you're in service, while you're working, when you do it, like all these different things. But the one thing my agency used to do all the time, and I don't know what it's like in Chicago or in Oklahoma, but we used to have the families come in and more importantly, give the families specific contact numbers. Like if you start seeing that, and this is well into my career when we were trying to figure out what to do, and I started realizing that there is a line that when they go home, work, as far as talking about it, stays at work, and they don't kind of bring it at home. They bring it at home whether they realize it or not, but they don't. But the first people outside of and I think you're right, Liz. I think frontline supervisors could be the key to saving a lot more lives. You're not going to save everybody. You know, that's unrealistic. But I think they're key in doing that. But even more so, the loved ones will start seeing those changes bit by bit by bit. And I know in the academy we talked about this. Like when we started learning, we call them PSAC codes, the police standard something whatever. Like an 80, I remember this one, 36 Bravo was like explosive diarrhea. Like, so if you put like 36 Bravo over the air, you know, it was a medical call or something like that. So I would start speaking in that jargon, and you know, friends and family would be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, I was like, "You should have been there. It was a 151." And then when we showed up, we were signal 4, and they're like, "I don't know what the fuck you're saying." Like, you know, but it was my own like little like code that but they also started seeing what it looked like when you started getting a little bit more jaded. So I don't know what the combination is of before we get into our jobs, while we're in our jobs, before we're getting ready to leave, or even afterwards, kind of getting that purpose. But also, at what point does our family need to be involved in this? And to me, that's, I think in what you're doing, Liz, and how you look at it, you look at the whole picture, and that whole picture changes from individual incident or individual. Like, I think that changes, and you kind of got to shift and move. But I think just knowing that there's that out there, like, all right, this is what this kind of looks like. This may look a little bit different for you, but like the gist of it is this is what you start maybe withdrawing, or again, any departure from like normative behavior, you talk a lot, but now you're at work, you're not talking as much, or you're a super slack kind of person that doesn't really get into stuff. Now you're like in overdrive again. So any kind of depart, but the outside person coming in is not going to know that. The frontline supervisor is, the other shift states are going to know about it. Family's going to know.
Family's going to know about it. Yeah. So
like
another
said,
piece that's important that we started. So we have the trauma and suicide psychoeducation for the first responders, but now another piece that I have started to introduce is we've created kind of like the same information, like from an educational perspective for families who have already, you know, gone through the suicide, and even for families for, you know, again, proactive preventative measures for the future. So because people forget, like, hey, yeah, you spend most of your time with your family, you know, they're the ones that really know you, and they know your behaviors and all those personality traits that you have. They know when things are off with you or not, you know, they may not be quite sure what's happening, but they know that things are off. I know that we have this habit because we're trying to protect our families. We've all done it when we first start these careers, where we want to kind of like isolate them from all the things that we see and we experience. Like in the beginning, we're kind of like, oh my God, you won't believe what I saw or what happened, right? Because you're kind of like in disbelief yourself, kind of like, oh my God. But then after a while, it starts to become so like negative, and you kind of want to shield your especially the closest people to you from it. And you don't want them to know, like, yeah, there's kind of this world out there that exists that's not the greatest, right? But then we start kind of isolating from them, where to the point that the lines of communication start to completely collapse. And so sometimes family members don't know, okay, what is this normal for them to be this isolated, because that's just kind of like how it is from this job. So there's a lot that we want to do now for the family members to be able to identify certain indicators that are not, you know, is this part of the job, or is this is something that's indicative of something bigger and dangerous, potentially, as far as like them being in crisis, heading in that direction, and like what to do to intervene and kind of like, you know.
And some family members may not want to say anything for fear that it'll affect their job.
Right.
And to those, and same thing with people on the job talking to other people that might be in crisis.
Right.
And I have it's a clinical phrase that I tell people, fuck your job. I don't care about your job. I care about you. That's
Yeah.
But
Very clinical.
I'll rephrase that. I don't not give a shit about it. I care that
Right.
that means to an end, right? Like that the
Yeah.
work. And if they like the job, then great. But
Right.
that's not if the one thing preventing me from helping you or your family member from
Yeah.
killing themselves is your job. I don't give
Yeah.
a shit about you. I really don't.
Right.
But let's be realistic. Which because I'll tell you from my point of view, and I'll throw it to you guys. There's some cases where I was like, if I say something, this guy or girl, it's a wrap. They
Right.
will not work in this field ever again. And
Right.
there's been plenty of times where I didn't say anything. I just that's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we could do training all day long on if you
Mm-hmm.
see this, say something, but you don't want to be the person that says something too quickly.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the person that doesn't say
Yes.
something, and then you're trying to you're navigating well, what does that look like? So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's also important when the bomb has gone off, so to speak, and you're dealing with folks that are dealing in the aftermath of suicide or whatever it is that they're struggling. I think that takes a lot of it out of it. Where, all right, let's start focus. Which is that aspect of it. I think you can make more movement or you get more movement on your end to help kind of educate on the other side of it before
Yeah.
it gets to that. But
Yeah.
it's not as easy as hey, these are the signs. Say something. Because
Right. No.
Chris have been working together.
And we cover that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's important.
Right.
Because I tell people when I do this training with them, I make it very clear, listen, there are times where, it's a very slippery slope sometimes, even for clinicians when they have to deal with somebody, right? That's why I say it's so important to have clinicians that are, I know people don't it's so cliche, but culturally competent, but it's really necessary because some behaviors compared to the general population may kind of have a clinician or somebody thinking oh, wow, should we be concerned? It's no, not in this particular case. This is something very normal. This is part of the culture. This is venting. They're not having a nervous breakdown. So it's you have to be very careful. And I tell people, there's no answer as to how to deal with somebody who you think may possibly be in crisis or possibly at risk for suicide. The one thing we can agree on is do not leave the person alone. That's 100% the one thing I tell them you absolutely should not do is leave them alone. But as far as navigating, I tell people don't jump the gun. We're not here at all to learn to be clinicians, right? The psychoeducation is not here to make clinicians out of you. You're not going to be experts. It's just to start picking up on things we're already doing. We're already talking. We're observers, right? We're natural born observers with this job. We're sitting there, we're coming in. I mean, we come into people's homes and we're taking charge. We're in control. We're telling people how things are going to go. You're making decisions. While you're talking to this person, you're looking at what's going on over in that other corner. So we're already doing this. No one's going to teach you how to have these investigative skills. You're already doing it. It's just when it comes to this particular topic, what is it that we should be more aware of so that we could at the very least pay a little more attention to and see, okay, is there really something going on here? Or is it kind of not so much, right? And then there's different ways to deal with it, but you don't have to, immediately run and go, to somebody without even looking into or asking questions or talking to the individual about how they're feeling, what they're going through. You don't have to run to a supervisor right away and put them in the hot seat. Just kind of, everything else that we do, ask questions, look into it, have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that a lot of people confuse training about. All right, this is going to train me to save a life.
Yeah.
Well, it's pointing in that direction. But I think like if Chris was struggling, I worked with Chris. I think before I'm going to start going into I took this class or I'm certified. And hey, Chris, what's going on? Because I'll tell you, and I can speak to most disciplines, but and I'll Chris kind of chime in on this, but we as cops or veterans, medics, and we don't want to be fixed. We want to have a role in kind of figuring it out. And I said this before, and it kind of stuck with me a little bit that peers or when we're presenting stuff or when we're talking to other people in crisis, we're less the fixers and more like the Sherpas. We're helping. You're doing the work. We should never be doing the work. We can't do it for them, but we can. Hey, this is what this looks like. And sometimes people have to fail, again, I don't want to let you fail to the point where you're going to lose your life. But I think, again, that's where there's no script. There's that be present with them, figure out, hey, where are you at? Where you tell me, because they're the ones that are going to be in the position to drive whether they go further down that slope or whether they start kind of navigating into a better position. Right. But Chris, do you see that?
Well, I want to go back real quick too, where you said you don't jump the gun, and because I always tell the story when I'm doing my little presentation when I talk about don't be scared to check on somebody, like you said, just what's going on. We had a new guy at the station who was always there early. I'd have to say, hey, you can't starting the equipment before the other shifts even out of bed. He was that kind of go getter and always involved. Sit around, smoke and joke after dinner, and well, I started noticing, and then he started getting there a little later, and then his pattern changed. He wasn't as, talkative at the station. He didn't hang out. So one day I went out there, I caught him out in the rig room, took my driver out there with me, just took another guy out there and just said, hey man, this is what I'm seeing. I wasn't like, hey, why are you doing? I just said, hey, man, when you first started, I'm just seeing you're coming in a little later. You're not as, active with us. The camaraderie's kind of, and man, he just let it out. And if I would have thought it was job related, but it was nothing to do with the job. He was having some marital issues, financial problems, and it was just wearing him out, eating at him. Nothing job related. At least what he told me. And I just told him, I said, dude, why don't you just come, of course you give him that coach speech, station officer speech. You mean it, but it sounds like coach speak. When they come to the station, you're saying, this is what we expect. Hey, and if you need anything, this is your family. And so I said, I told you if you need anything, just let me know. And he goes, well, I figured that was just like a station officer's written speech you had to say. He said, but when you came out here and actually asked me what was going on or if there was anything wrong, I felt like that was my opportunity to let you know. He said, because he knew he was slacking on the job a little more. He knew. And so he said, that just gave me an opportunity to explain, what's going on. So like you said, don't jump the gun.
But you make a great point.
That's a great example.
But sometimes the job is the one thing that's keeping somebody together.
Yeah.
Right. It may not be like just what you said, Chris. It may not and could you imagine jumping the gun a little bit and taking the one thing that's keeping him or her kind of grounded?
Well, and real quick, like I said, I had to do a quarterly report on him, and I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So if I hadn't, and I'm not tooting my horn, but I'm saying if we hadn't reached out to see what was wrong with him or what was going on, I would have gave him a shitty quarterly report, and you got to do so well that first year, or you're an at-will employee. There's no union protection. They can can your tail. And so, and he's a great guy now. He's a station officer now on the job, one of the greatest guys. I'm thinking, now that we're talking about it, I'm thinking back going, oh my God, if I would have just filled out his quarterly report, gave him all 4s out of 10, or whatever.
And so Chris, you were his supervisor, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a great example right there of what Chris Gallen brought up earlier, as far as like that, how important that training is for promotions and supervisors, because here's the thing, again, day in and day out, that's what we were talking about. You're seeing this individual, what his typical personality and behaviors tend to be. And then he was off. And then like, you could have just, ignored or just thought like, he's just being a lazy dog ass. Right. And you don't, he gets a bad report, but that's what's missing. That's what we need to be doing more often, not just supervisors, but as fellow coworkers, just literally take a moment to stop and ask an individual like, hey, are you, pull them to the side. It doesn't have to be in front of everyone, and just say, hey, I've noticed that, maybe I'm wrong, but, you're showing them that you're being empathetic, that you're actually caring, and that you want to let it be known that, if anything, if you can be of any help, like, hey, let me know, I'm here, whatever. And that just goes such a long way for a lot of individuals. And it doesn't always come very natural to everyone, but very simple. Like, nowadays we're in this world where like, we don't even call people. We don't visit, we're texting. And it's like, pick up the phone and actually listen to the person's voice. Like anybody can say, yeah, I'm good over the text. And then, you know what I mean? But when you hear a person's voice or when you're in front of them and you see them, it might be completely different and you're able to pick up on more. So I think that's.
Yeah. Well, I think back when I was hired in '85, that'd have been me. if I'd have been that kid in 1985, my officer would have said, "You like driving a school bus?" I said, "No, why? You better pick your ass up or you're going to be driving one because you won't be a firefighter. We're going to can your ass. You're doing it." They wouldn't have cared what was going on.
But
not that they didn't. That's just, I always say that. It's not that they didn't have sympathy or empathy or they didn't have, it's just the way they were raised in the fire service.
It was a different time.
I mean, it's just, that's the way,
I look at it, and again, it's a great example, but I'm thinking, and we'll never really know, the way you treated that guy, there's no doubt that as he progresses, because we're leaving, we're going to be gone, from these agencies. But the people that we touch are going to, it's going to have an effect.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking he's going to be looking at the newer guys and he's going to be giving them, hopefully, the same compassion and care that Chris Fields did.
Yes.
And it kind of passes it along. And I say this all the time, and I got to find out where this quote was from, but I saw it and it was just amazing for when we're doing peer work. It's, we're planting a seed for a tree that we will never have the luxury of its shade. And I think that's what you did. And here's the crazy part. Chris, Liz, Raul, Doug, Rich have all touched people in their lives that they have no idea how good of an effect that had. I mean, just multiplied, like exponentially better. That one person helped this other person who then helped somebody in their life. And as they kind of progress, because we can all, I know I look back and I know Chris looks back and all of us who've been retired, all the people that were like, I'm like, oh my God, how they tie their shoes is amazing. And now they're bosses, now they're leaders and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm hoping that what they saw in somebody helping somebody else in front of them, or they help themselves, kind of help them progress and help just kind of pass that along, that legacy. And that's why, I think it's super important. I think the training is one thing, but just like, I don't know that you can have a class other than like what you're doing and presenting all that stuff. But there's nothing that speaks more to that than what Chris just said. An innocent engagement with somebody who was struggling for no other reason than to be like, hey, bro, what's going on? That's it. And to have that much of an impact that's priceless. You can't.
Hey, we're getting up close to 7, so I just wanted to say, I'm reading Raul's text.
Oh, okay.
So he could have started out by saying, hey, y'all are stupid, so I'm going to tell y'all how y'all need to do this. Scallon, when you're ready to close out, thank Liz and survive first. Her info will be in the credits, and the normal if you or anyone needs help. So, why did you start that with, hey, you two guys don't have a clue how to do this show?
No.
All right, this when he's editing.
No, we'll do this. Yeah, we're coming to, and we could talk for hours. We could do it all day long. But I think Liz, we're gonna and again, Raul's gonna put all the your nonprofit stuff on the website and the information and stuff like that. But we'll go. What we do is we go around. I'll talk to Raul, but he's not there because he's busy trying to pay his internet bill. So we'll go around. I'll have Chris say something, and then I'll say something, and then Liz, we'll have you close it out. So, Tiger, go ahead.
Yeah, man. Liz, like I said, man, you're a rock star. I like following all your stuff on the social media. I think first time I met you was at Lynn University, and then we played golf in the humidity that I still have a rash from. Oh, that was brutal.
Lord, those good times.
That was.
It was horrible. But no, I love what you're doing, and you made a great point too. Like when you said, we think we don't take it home just because we don't talk about it. So we say, I don't take my job home because I don't talk about it. Well, you're taking it home. Yeah. You're taking home in the way you're treating them a little different, acting, temper, isolation, a little depression thing. And we think we can hide it. And the family, like you said, they see it. So I love that anytime people do stuff, what you're doing, they include the family, part of it. So like I said, I'm glad to be associated with you, man.
Thank you.
Can I call you a dude?
Yeah,
of course. You know me. I'm not that sensitive at all.
Anyway, it's great to see you, and we'll have you on again, definitely.
So I'll say this. I think what you're doing is awesome. I think the other thing that speaks volumes is that you're still doing the job. So we talk about the stuff that we did while we were there and what we try to do afterwards, but you're doing what we're doing, but also actively working, which is a lot. And we'll throw a couple things out there. You had I think the DNC was up in Chicago. It is a nightmare up there where, again, leave gets canceled. Your leave got canceled. You weren't allowed to do this. Certain things that we were scheduled to do, you couldn't do because if you missed the flight, you had to be at work. So you were truly flying the plane while you're building it. So my hat's off to you there. And you're inundated, especially working in Chicago, with the real horrific side of what this job can kind of present to you. So my hats off to you, and just having the wherewithal to kind of put all this shit together. I was an idiot for most of my career trying to navigate, feel my way through the dark on trying to do stuff. So you're at a much higher level, and I just can't wait to see what you got going on, and look forward to all the other stuff that we're going to be doing together, especially whether it be with Lynn at Quell or with Tron Behind the Badge or with yours, with your nonprofit. So with that, Liz, tell us any information you want to put out, where you're going to be, if something's going on, where they can find you, and then we'll also link that into the club.
Awesome. Thank you again, guys. So yeah, you can go to the website. I like to tell people to subscribe. It is www.resilient-heroes.com. If you subscribe, I am putting out like a weekly newsletter, and it really just tells you all the work that we've been doing. I'm constantly, either traveling, presenting, different agencies. You can contact me, and we have different, I have a lot of different agencies. I mean, I'm across the country, and here in the state of Illinois, where I'm going out. Agencies we host, have an agency host their location, and other agencies are invited. So that's something that we could always set up. There's like other projects like you mentioned that we're on, but you can definitely go to the website. Obviously it is a not-for-profit, so it's not all self-sustainable. So for donations, if you're interested in any volunteer opportunities or anything that way, definitely get contact with me through the website. You can call me. My cell's on there. My email, liz@resilientheroes.com. And yeah, we appreciate you guys so much.
Liz, Liz, I've got the director in my ear here. He says, tell her to give the website again, please.
Yes. Okay. So the website, you can find us www.resilient-heroes.com. All the information is there. We can set up training. We can come out to your agency or have your agency host and invite other surrounding agencies or organizations to come and be a part of the psychoeducation training. We set up the training to accommodate whatever your needs are for the length of time, because of the hours and your employees. So you can definitely go on there, reach out to me, liz@resilientheroes.com for email. The phone number's on there. Everything is available on the website.
We're gonna put it up there. So
yeah, we're also on LinkedIn and Facebook. So yeah, we ask that we encourage people to subscribe to the website, because we are putting out the weekly notes of work that we've been doing, where we've been, what we have coming up, what else has been going on. I actually didn't mention my little sidekick. He's not little, but I do have a trauma therapy dog, and his name is Arlo. He is a 200-pound bull mastiff, and he goes with me to all trainings and all the conferences and all, as long as I can drive there, because I will not put him on a plane.
No, may not let you.
That's all right. We have a human therapy support animal, Doug, and he comes with us to support us. But so with that, Liz, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, guys.
As always, thanks for tuning in. And if you or somebody is struggling, you don't know what to do, who to call, don't ever hesitate to reach out. We'll have our info out there, and we'll be keeping you updated with all the good shit we got coming up. So
that's right. Hey, and do not sign off, Liz, until yours says
don't sign off.
All right. Raul will give you all the instructions already. About wait until it's 100% uploaded. Okay.
All right, guys. All right, Raul. Do your thing.
Well, Phil.